समुद्रस्य हिमाद्रश्चैव दक्षिणं वर्षं तद् भारतं नाम भारतीयत्र सन्तति।
Namaste. Welcome to today's episode of Itihasa. In today's episode of Itihasa, we will talk about Panchkanya or Panchasati. We will understand who these individuals were. We will learn a little bit about their stories. Ahalya, Draupadi, Sita, Tara Mandadari Tatha, Panchkanya Smaret Nityam, Mahapataka Nashakam. Some of you may have heard this shloka. Sometimes Sita is replaced with Kunti. What are the antecedents of this shloka? No one quite knows. I have read somewhere that it figures in the Brahmanda Purana. It certainly does not figure in the edition of the Brahmanda Purana that I have. And the names, as I said, vary a little bit. The characters are either from the Ramayana or the Mahabharata. Ahalya, associated with the legend of Rishi Gautama and Indra. Ahalya, Draupadi, one need not say anything about Draupadi. Sita or Kunti, Tara. Some people sometimes say this is Tara, Brihaspati's wife. Probably not. This Tara is probably Vali's wife. And of course, Mandodari. Panchkanya or Panchasati. Quite often we tend to use our understanding of what these words mean and try to judge incidents from the past. Sanskrit is a language where each word has several meanings. Kanya does mean virgin. Kanya does mean young maiden, but not always necessarily so. Any lady can also be called Kanya. Similarly, when we have a word like Sati, it does not necessarily mean chastity in the sense of faithfulness to the husband. Sati also means any lady. So please do remember, Kanya, Sati, these are not words we should look at in terms of our understanding of what these words mean today.
भारतीय संस्कृति ने सभी युगों में पनपने वाली सभ्यताओं को जीवन का अमूल्य सूत्र दिया। स्थान, काल और परिस्थितियों के प्रभाव में इन सभ्यताओं से जुड़े समाज का स्वरूप बदलता रहता है। बदलाव की इन कड़ियों के बीच संस्कृति धारा की निरंतरता बनी रहती है। पंचकन्या भारतीय संस्कृति का एक ऐसा ही सूत्र है जो समय समय पर समाज को दिशा निर्देशित करता रहा है। निर्देश ये है कि हर काल में स्त्रियां समाज को शक्ति देती हैं। इसलिए समाज बार बार अपने संस्कारों को परिमार्जित करे और स्त्रियों को आदर्श रूप में स्थान दे। पंचकन्या के रूप में अहिल्या, द्रौपदी, तारा, कुंती और मंदोदरी की प्रतिष्ठा है। कथा कुछ ऐसी है कि सत्ताधारी इंद्र के छल से हतप्रभ अहिल्या पति के क्रोध और समाज के भय से शिलावत जड़ सी हो जाती हैं। ऐसे में सबके अधिकारों की रक्षा करने को प्रकट हुए भगवान श्री राम उन्हें समाज में पुनर्स्थापित करते हैं। कहते हैं भगवान श्री राम को रामत्व की प्राप्ति की पहली घटना भी यही है। एक उद्धारक, मूल्यों के प्रतिष्ठापक, सामाजिक संस्तुति के दाता और स्त्री सम्मान के रक्षक के रूप में उनकी कीर्ति फैलती है। परिणाम होता है कि त्याग की प्रतिमूर्ति अहिल्या अडिग और निष्ठापूरित होने के कारण समाज में आज भी एक आदर्श के रूप में प्रतिष्ठित हैं। पंचकन्याओं में दूसरा नाम द्रौपदी का है। 5 पति होने के कारण वो तब भी समाज में चर्चा का कारण रही और आज भी हैं। ऐसा कहते हैं कि द्रौपदी ने पांडवों की माता की आज्ञा को माना और 5 का वरण किया, पतियों की द्यूत क्रीड़ा को स्वीकार किया, 12 वर्षों के वनवास का दंश झेला, महाभारत के युद्ध में पुत्रों की अकाल मृत्यु की साक्षी रही। द्रौपदी ने तमाम दुखों के बाद भी संबंधों और पारिवारिक मूल्यों में निष्ठा और ईमानदारी को प्राथमिकता दी। यही वजह है कि द्रौपदी को मनीषियों ने आदर्श माना है। किष्किंधा के राजा बाली की पत्नी तारा ने युग धर्म को स्वीकारा। इसी कारण तारा उदाहरण बनकर खड़ी है।
कायर, लज्जा से डूब मर, युद्ध से भागकर पत्नी के आंचल में जाकर छुप गया, हिम्मत है तो बाहर निकल।
बाली और सुग्रीव के युद्ध में बाली को कूटनीति और राजधर्म की शिक्षा देती है तारा।
स्वामी, बैरी नहीं, आपका भाई है वो। भाई से भाई की लड़ाई सदा जग हंसाई का कारण बनती है। संसार आप ही को दोष देगा। बड़े आप है स्वामी।
बड़े छोटे का भेद माँ की गोद तक सीमित रहता है। एक राज्य के 2 राजा नहीं हो सकते, वो चाहे भाई भाई ही क्यों ना हो।
श्री राम के हाथों बाली के वध पर प्रश्न उठाती हैं, पुत्र के लिए अभय दान मांगती हैं। राम की आज्ञा के अनुसार बाली की अनुपस्थिति में किष्किंधा का राज चलाने, पुत्र अंगद के भविष्य को सुरक्षित करने और समाज में विवाद उत्पन्न होने से बचाने के लिए सुग्रीव की रानी और किष्किंधा की महारानी बनती हैं तारा। संसार को राक्षसी प्रवृत्ति से त्राण दिलाने के लिए श्री राम के चलाए समाज के एकीकरण अभियान का हिस्सा बनकर साथ देती हैं। ये तारा का महान त्याग ही था जो पंचकन्या के अर्थ को सार्थक करता है। पंचकन्या में कुंती की कथा कई मिथकों को तोड़ने वाली है। कुंती ने ऋषि दुर्वासा को अपने आतिथ्य से इतना प्रसन्न किया कि उन्होंने मंत्र जप के साथ ही देव आह्वान का वरदान दिया। सूर्य देव का आह्वान करके पुत्र कर्ण को पाया, लेकिन अविवाहित स्त्री को पुत्र होना समाज के नैतिक मानदंडों के विपरीत था, जिसके बाद नवजात शिशु को नदी में बहाने का दिल दहला देने वाला निर्णय कुंती ने लिया। बाद में पति पांडु के आदेश से कुंती ने मंत्रों का प्रयोग करके पांडवों को प्राप्त किया। पति की अकाल मृत्यु, पुत्र वियोग और कौरवों के बार बार छल ने उन्हें अतिशय सशक्त स्त्री बना दिया। पतिव्रता, कर्तव्य परायण माता और वनवास के दौरान अपने पुत्रों का मार्गदर्शन करने वाली कुंती को भारतीय संस्कृति में एक आदर्श स्थान मिला है। मंदोदरी लंका की महारानी थी। लंका जो सोने से बनी थी, यानी संसार की सारी सुंदरता और भोग के सभी साधन वहां मौजूद थे। रावण जो रक्ष संस्कृति में जन्म लेने वाला राक्षस पथ का अनुगामी था, अपने सद्विचार से उसके दोषों का निराकरण करने का प्रयास मंदोदरी ही करती थी। रावण की अन्य पत्नियां मंदोदरी को स्वीकार्य थीं, लेकिन सीता को पत्नी बनाने की इच्छा के खिलाफ थीं।
हर प्राणी की अंतरात्मा उसे अवश्य चेतावनी देती है। हाँ,
इस बात का प्रमाण है कि वो एक विदुषी, राजनीति और युग धर्म को जानने वाली और आध्यात्म की मर्मज्ञ थीं।
सीता को आदर सहित रघुवर के पास पहुंचा दीजिए।
रानी!
रावण जैसे महान ज्ञानी को भी धर्म की राह पर चलने का परामर्श मंदोदरी जैसी आदर्श स्त्री ही दे सकती थी। शास्त्रों में वर्णित अंश के आधार पर इन 5 चरित्रों में निश्चित ही एक समानता है। ये 5 आध्यात्म की साधक रही हैं। समाज और परिवार से मिलने वाली वेदनाओं के बीच समाज और परिवार के सभी मानकों को भी आत्मसात किया, इनसे दूर नहीं हुई। इन 5 को लेकर समाज में हर काल में 2 धाराएं रही होंगी जो आज भी हैं, लेकिन सभ्यता के विकास और समाज के निर्माण में भारतीय संस्कृति की सतत प्रवाहमान धारा में अक्षय कीर्ति के साथ खड़ी पंचकन्या है।
Today's episode, I am delighted that we are joined by a celebrated author and friend, Koral Dasgupta, author, academic painter also, I think, a little bit. She has started a series on Panchkanya. The series is called Panchkanya, published under the Sati series. Coral, welcome to Itihasa. Glad to have you here.
I'm totally thankful to you for allowing me this opportunity.
How did you get interested in this topic? You've written on all kinds of other things, but how did you specifically get interested in Panchkanya?
Sir, I think when I was small, all my summer holidays and winter holidays used to start with the fat Bengali translation of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, reading them, and I did it again and again. We had many books, but I don't know why I read that again and again. Now, as a grown-up, when I look back, I feel that probably there were certain portions that were asking questions, and a small mind that it was then still wanted to find those answers in those texts. Those answers are probably something that is coming back to me now, and mythology is something that I have always been very interested in. Not for any agenda, you know, not because of any feminist agenda, for any sociologist agenda, just the concept of Shiva or Kali. And the more you enter, it's very difficult. You are a mythologist yourself, and you probably know that once you have entered, it's very difficult to come out of it and say that I'm done. It just doesn't happen. So the more I took interest, the more I entered that space, and my past books were not about mythology, but my fictions did touch upon mythology in some way or the other. Rasya, for example, one of my books, which is about Bharatanatyam dancers, and it deals with the Shiva Kali Gauri triangle, the ideological conflict. So it was just one spark that I had about Ahalya's story, that I wrote Ahalya, and I had sent a one-sentence speech to Pan Macmillan asking whether they would be interested. And I was very clear that it will be a Panchkanya series. It will be Ahalya, Kunti, Draupadi, Mandodari, Tara, and as you said, Sita. Sita will feature very strongly in many stories, in the story of Mandodari, in the story of Tara, and to some extent, now that I have just submitted Draupadi to the publisher, I know that to some extent Sita will feature there, because Draupadi will try to understand who Sita is. So Sita will have her presence in these.
So just so that the viewer knows, two of these have already been published. Ahalya has been published, Draupadi has been published. Kunti has been published, Draupadi will soon be published. So tell us about Ahalya. Tell the viewer about Ahalya. The reason I am saying this is there are different versions of the story of Ahalya, essentially focused on to what extent was Ahalya to blame. Now, what is your take in your version of the retelling?
Sir, just in the beginning, while you were introducing this series, you were talking about the sloka, which says that if you recite the name of Panchkanya, a lot of your sins get dispelled. While writing Panchkanya, I realized that this sloka is not telling us that recite Panchkanya every day in the morning, Ahalya, Kunti, Draupadi, Mandodari, Tara, Ahalya, Kunti, Draupadi, Mandodari, Tara. It's not saying that. What it is saying is spend time with these women, and all kinds of politics, gender politics, will stand right out before you, and you can make your choice, because these women did. In Ahalya's story, I see that woman, and this has been the traditional journey of femininity, not only in India, across the world, that a lot of opportunities were denied, and women tried to find happiness in whatever was available, just because they didn't want to stay unhappy, and that was a very strong choice. Not necessarily, I mean, they could have broken their homes and gone ahead. Of course, there was society, but then most of the women didn't try, because they wanted to keep things together, which is a part of our culture, which is a part of our belief. And in Ahalya, I see that woman who wanted to keep things together and tried to find her happiness in whatever was there with her. The word Indra comes from the word Indriya, which is about our senses, the 5 senses, 6 senses Krishna. So, the 5 senses are about impulse, and probably Ahalya had tried to develop those senses in a sage like Gautam, which got Gautam very annoyed because he had many years of penance to him, which was a different journey for him, which he felt Ahalya had dismissed by arousing those desires in him. And that makes Ahalya's story. Whether Ahalya's punishment was fair, of course it was not. But I see a lot of reason in whatever had happened and how it had happened.
So, Gautam was effectively punishing himself in a way.
Yes, yes, absolutely, because what he wanted was detachment, and in that curse which he puts upon Ahalya, that you will turn into a stone, Ahalya basically gives away from Ahalya the capacity to feel, to react is taken, and she is supposed to be detached, and that detachment was what Gautam was seeking. So, all the penance of all his life, the fruits were left to Ahalya, and Gautam goes away without realizing what he had discarded. Khapa khuje fere Parush Pathor.
In a way, the Ahalya story is simple, meaning there is only one dimension to the story, not too many aspects. The Kunti one is much more, because Kunti is throughout the Mahabharata. Which particular aspects of Kunti did you pick?
Sir, for me, in Kunti's story, I found a lot of things that were not told. For example, Kunti's relationship with Surya. You know, she gave birth to Karna after engaging with Surya, and then did Surya disappear from her life? That is not possible. And then we see Kunti engaging into a lot of political discourse, course correcting for her children, and Surya is actually the sun god who is the god of knowledge. To him, all the three levels of time is bare. He can see the past, present and future. So, if Kunti is blessed by Surya, it is obvious that Kunti will be a very knowledgeable person. So, in future, the political and the emotional decisions that Kunti takes are very intelligent, and they are very interesting, and I feel that a lot of that happens because of her collaboration or partnership with Surya.
Are you ready to tell us about your take on Draupadi, or should we wait to read the book?
Sir, in Draupadi,
well, whatever you can tell us.
There are 2 things that I am very strongly working on. One is, I feel, it's personal feeling, that we haven't understood Krishna enough, and in our gross misunderstanding of Krishna, Draupadi's story has been misconstrued. If we understand Krishna better, we will understand a lot more about Draupadi and her and the force that she was. She will be far more liberated if we are open to understand Krishna. Second is the role of Bhishma. Bhishma in Kunti's life comes across as a villainous character, because he is trying to do things that will be right in favor of Hastinapur throne. So, what he has done with Pandu's mother, he could have done with Pandu's wife as well, if Kunti didn't resist. But when it comes to Draupadi, he is a different relationship, the grand uncle, right. So, when Draupadi gets to see Bhishma, she gets to see what the tremendous transformation had done to a person. A young teen boy with full of dreams of his own suddenly takes an oath to please his father, and he doesn't know what that oath will actually mean. Once that oath is taken and everybody has showered flowers, he realizes that some of the very fundamental rights that a human should have is taken away, and he is deprived of many things that will turn a person bitter, cruel in many ways, though he might be very brave, very courageous, a wonderful person otherwise. Draupadi gets to see the forgotten prince Devavrat. These are the two fundamental intervention areas in Draupadi.
Have you thought about Tara yet, or you haven't?
I have.
For you,
it is already written. The first draft is
so
written.
Tara is Bali's wife. Tara.
Yes.
It is not Brihaspati's
Yes,
wife.
I am working on Bali's wife.
And Mandodari also you have. So what is going to be the sequence? First Tara, after Draupadi?
After Draupadi, Mandodari, then
After
Tara. Tara is last.
Is there any reason why Panchkanya, Panchasati, whatever, is there any reason why you think these names are not very popular? I have met women who are called Ahalya, or they used to be women called Ahalya once upon a time. I have never met anyone called Draupadi. I have met people called Panchali. I haven't met anyone called Mandodari. So, do you think regardless everything happens at a certain time, at a certain place, do you think we still nevertheless impose our value judgments from today on these characters?
Very much so. Some time back, I mean, I look at these characters not just from literary but from the attitude point of view.
Have you met anyone named
No.
Mandodari or
No.
Draupadi?
No, I haven't. And I look at these characters not only from the literary but also from the attitude point of view. You know, some time back I asked a friend who is an HR director in an MNC, and I asked her that if I was to tell anybody that you are the corporate Arjun, that person would be very happy. Would he be equally happy, he or she be equally happy if I say that you are the corporate Draupadi? She is an educated woman, leading a very strong vertical. She was very uncomfortable. That why would you even do that? Why would you say that? So I just kept quiet. But you know, it says a lot about where our mind is in terms of all the inclusivity and diversity statements that we make otherwise. Somewhere we have not been able to cross those thresholds. We still in our mind are very judgmental, and we are not comfortable about these women. And while writing this series, I personally felt that Kunti is far more fierce than Draupadi was, and Kunti has been kept in that, I mean, that story has been, her personal story has probably been suppressed a little bit because people didn't want anybody to be Kunti or like Kunti. So yes, these stories, people are not very comfortable with these stories.
In the Mahabharata, who are the most powerful women characters who appeal to you? Not appeal to you, who do you think are the most powerful women characters?
There are many, sir. I mean, I keep reading, and whenever I think of every individual journey, I find them very, very intriguing and interesting. Shakuntala was one, Kunti, Draupadi obviously, Gandhari. There are so many. It's very difficult to say that who are the more, even Hirimba or Chitrangada. I see that Hirimba and Chitrangada are the ones who didn't want to accompany their husbands to the place of their husbands. Chitrangada's story I was just trying to figure out, and I was trying to read more to know that she was quite open about her interest in Arjun. Then why did she continue to stay in in Manipur? And correct me if I am wrong, I read that her father didn't have a son and she was the son. By, you know,
Putrika.
Yeah,
there used to be a system of Putrika.
She wanted to take, her take was that if I go away, my father doesn't have another heir, so I am there, so I will not go with him. So what if I love?
There is a difference between our views, yours and mine particularly,
Sir,
are
please
often
tell me
shaped
about
by Rabindranath Tagore.
Yes.
But the Mahabharata story is not quite the same, but yes, it was a system that you had a putrika. I have a hypothesis, and it's just a speculative hypothesis. Since you are also a poet, I am just mentioning it to you, that most of this was composed in Anushtup, which means 8 aksharas per line. If it is 8 aksharas per line, it is easier for me to handle names that have 4 aksharas. If they have 3 aksharas, it would have to be a really skilled poet to do that. 2 aksharas, 4 aksharas, they fit into the Anushtup pattern. So, I asked you about the powerful women. Kunti, well, 2 aksharas, Chitrangada, and Shakuntala in the Mahabharata is a very powerful character. So, I just wonder whether all that Vedavasa was doing was just trying to compose the poetry as best as he could, and several years down the line we wonder why Ambalika is so prominent and Ambika isn't.
Exactly. Amba, in fact, I find her transformation from Amba to Shikhandini a tremendous story. I mean, I have no words for that story.
Koral Dasgupta, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.